Friends, welcome to my workplace at Ranaghat, West Bengal, India. This is management of an intumescent cataract under topical anesthesia. When you manage an intumescent cataract under topical anesthesia, there are two challenges: topical and intumescent. But it is possible. Please observe this surgery very carefully. By this time, the main incision and on paracentesis on the right side of the main incision have been made. Now I want to stain the anterior capsule of this cataractous lens with trypan blue dye. An air bubble has been injected, and here goes the dye. The dye should touch on all parts of the anterior capsule, but in this case the periphery of the anterior capsule didn't get a right amount of stain. Now the dye is washed out with Ringer lactate or balanced salt solution, and then the anterior chamber is filled up with viscoelastic substance. I use 2% hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose. And with 2% SPMC, see how we can safely do a Rhexis. This is another paracentesis on the left side of the main incision. Now a 26 gauge bent needle cystitome is introduced through the right side port, incise the anterior capsule and raise a flap which is like C. It's a curved flap. Now if we convert this C flap into a small Rhexis, I call it a mini Rhexis. At this stage I don't try to do an optimum sized Rhexis at all. Now I introduce a Simcoe cannula, go with aspiration on through this opening into the capsular bag, and aspirate some cortical lens matter. Squeeze the lens matter from outside, rotate the nucleus and aspirate cortical lens matter from all around, and thus I deflate the capsular bag. If we do this, the cataract is no longer an intumescent cataract, it is an ordinary cataract, non-intumescent white cataract. Visco is again injected. Now I take a Vanna scissor, make a small cut, a nick at around 8 o'clock, take the ureter again, and now I enlarge this mini Rhexis into an optimum sized Rhexis. Since there is no tendency of the capsule to run to periphery, we can control it very nicely and do a round Rhexis like this. Now this Rhexis is comparable to Femto Rhexis. So if we increase our skills to certain level, we do not need a femto laser for intumescent cataracts. And tell me, how many intumescent cataracts can afford to pay for the femto laser? Very few. So we must develop our skills to do round Rhexis in intumescent cataracts, and this is one way, and you must develop your own technique. There must be other ways. And now this is Oddly Cataracts 3. Hold is so good and chopping is a joy with this machine. The Phaco handpiece has 6 crystals, very powerful emulsification of the nuclear fragments. In this case, Phaco power was 65%, flow rate is 45 ml per minute, and vacuum is 450 millimeter of mercury. This is the last but one fragment being emulsified. We must always look at the behavior of the posterior capsule. Is there any trampoline? If it is there, we must be more careful. And now this is the last beat of the nucleus. At this time I remove the chopper, leakage from the sideport stops, and the anterior chamber becomes more stable. Now you can see in this case there are two small nuclear fragments. We must remove these two small nuclear fragments before cleaning the cortical matter. I use a Simcoe cannula 23 gauge Simcoe and scout these small nuclear bits out of the anterior chamber. You must develop your own technique. And now I clean the cortical matter. See how beautifully, how fast and how safely you can clean the cortex within few seconds with this very simple instrument. And it is so economic that you can have a Simcoe for every case. You cannot have a bimanual set for every case, but you can have this for every case. And now there are some cells sticking to the posterior capsule, and the posterior capsule needs some amount of polishing. The Simcoe is being used to polish the posterior capsule, but the better way is the irrigating probe of bimanual irrigation aspiration devices. Only the irrigation handpiece is used. In this case, I'm going to implant a hydrophilic acrylic intraocular lens in the capsular bag. These patients with intumescent cataracts, with mature cataracts, are usually poor. They cannot afford even a hydrophobic intraocular lens. How can they pay for femto laser? It is beyond my comprehension. And now this is the final lavage of the anterior chamber. Before that, I must hydrate the stroma on either side of the stab wounds, paracentesis openings, to close the paracentesis and make these wounds waterproof. And now I take the Simcoe, and this is the final lavage. At this time, some amount of fluid is flushed towards the corneal endothelium through the aspirating port, and this very nice cleaning of the anterior chamber. The anterior chamber is formed very nicely, and the case is concluded after checking the wounds with a cotton-tipped wet Johnson bar. There should not be any leakage from any side. Thank you very much for watching. Hope this video will help you in developing your surgical skills. Dear colleagues, don't feel inferior if you do not have high-end machines or high-end devices like femto laser. Develop your surgical skills and be a great surgeon, and serve the mankind with compassion, love, respect, and great surgical skills.